The Protector by KB HURST. There was something there in the distance. When I peered out of the rain-covered window, my heart clenched inside of my chest. I could hear the rain pitter-patter and the sound of the traffic in the distance. I was no longer calm, and had not been for some nights. I could feel something, almost shockingly, desiring to connect to my mind. I ached to sever it from my thoughts, only it kept brewing within me, shattering my peace, my sense of self. I made coffee and read the newspaper, but again, my thoughts returned to the thing that watched me from the confines of my home. What was that sound? It sounded as though something were knocking at my back door. I stood up and made my way slowly towards the back door. I opened it and stood for a moment, hearing the rain still, only now it seemed to be slowing. The sound of the rain seemed as though it were in the distance. When I looked down to see a dead bird, a black bird, and next to it was another, and then another. 3 black birds lying dead at my back door. I recalled my wife, Julia, saying that everything happens in threes, that the birds and the woodland creatures were her protectors and her friends. Silly woman, I smiled, thinking of her now as I tried to calm myself. Only there was no calm. It was rattling inside my chest, and there was an anxiousness that I could not explain. I stood, stunned, not understanding at first. I looked over at my car, shattering lights in the front, hair and blood still stained the hood. It was only an accident. It wasn't something I had done on purpose. I mean, I never saw it coming. I was driving down the 2-lane highway. My thoughts were unimportant now. I had no recollection of what my concerns were that took my eyes from the road before she appeared, tall, white-faced, and her brown eyes looked into mine right before I... Never mind that. They say it's common this time of year to have a run-in with creatures. A doe-eyed beauty. I shut the back door and returned to my paper. Only now, I felt that shadow again. Something in the woods behind my house. It watched me from inside of me. How? It made no sense. Then, I saw it. From the corner of my eyes, there it was. The tallest, largest buck I had ever seen in my life was now standing in my backyard, its antlers wide, almost pulling me inside it as it watched me from outside my window. My heart skipped a beat, and my coffee spilled as my hand shook. It was a mistake. That is all. Nothing more. I had to be seeing things. I rubbed my eyes, and it still stood, only it was closer now. Behind it, there were others, as if they were waiting. Waiting for what? I wondered. I had to be losing my mind. This was impossible. Surely they were not... Oh, but they were. It stood there eyeing me, edging ever closer, and with it, other creatures seemed to now appear. Birds lined my fence. Squirrels stopped eating their nuts, and they too began to stare at me through my window. There was a raccoon now scratching at my back door. A fly landed on my shoulder. Bugs came up from the cellar door and crawled their tiny legs in my direction. They stopped before they reached me. I turned to look now as the buck was only mere inches from my window. Then it slammed its head into my window. The glass cracked, and as I watched it, I felt them crawling up my leg. The bugs were crawling up my leg. I looked at my hands, and I felt the sting of a spider bite. It was like no other I had ever felt. The buck hit the glass again. This time, the glass shattered, and the rest of the woodland creatures began to come for me, aiming at my head as I ran upstairs to my bedroom. I heard hooves. It was getting closer now. That buck was just outside my bedroom door, closing in on me. Then I heard her voice. "Simon, please, I beg of you, please, Simon." That's when I remembered. "No, how dare you? I will never forgive you for it. Get out of my car." "No, I will not till you tell me you forgive me." "Julia, I will never forgive you," I screamed. She got out of the car, still wearing her nightgown, and stood at the edge of our street. I looked at her and then pushed my foot on the gas. In an instant, she was dead. My folly, my jealousy. Oh, how I felt the rage, and it burned a hole inside my chest. I looked at her body now, laying in the road. Next to her was a doe, a pretty little female deer, and then it jumped over her body and into the woods. I could hear them inching closer to me now. I could hear Julia, always the nature lover, my wife, the witch. How could she ever think I'd forgive her for her unfaithfulness? I heard the crashing of my door now. As I screamed, I felt someone pushing me to the ground. There were handcuffs and guns now. Where were the animals? I had no idea how they knew it was me. I cried now as the officer read me my rights. "They were watching you for a few days. You're under arrest for the murder of your wife, Julia." As they put me into the police car, I could only see the animals now. Those creatures watching me from every corner of my yard, and their eyes watched from every window as the cop car pulled away.